This is the Jerry Callahan Show.
All right, first of all, that was not a press conference. I lied to you. I said there was a big press conference tonight with Joe Biden, a big boy press conference. Couple rules here. I've been to lots of press conferences. I've watched many, many press conferences. There's no such thing with a press conference with a teleprompter. There's no such thing with a speech before the press conference from a teleprompter, and there's no such thing as a press conference where the reporters, the journalists, are pre-selected. We know they give some interviewers the questions in advance. We know that. We've learned that. They've been busted. Are we supposed to think they didn't do that tonight? Because the questions sucked, because the journalists were pathetic. Here's my summary. Joe Biden was bad. The journalists were worse. These people are cowards. There was more questions about Finland than there were about Barack Obama. To review, as we mentioned yesterday, there was a credible report, and I believe it 100%, from Morning Joe, that Barack Obama is leading the effort to oust Joe Biden, to force Joe Biden out of the race. That would be the 44th president trying to oust the 46th president, his former vice president. I don't know. I would call that kind of a big deal. To quote Joe Biden, kind of a big fucking deal. The president is being pressured to quit by his former running mate, by his best friend. That's what he called him, his best friend. That's kind of a big story. And none of these worthless, spineless cowards in the press corps asked about it. Just a quick few list of things that they skipped, that they forgot. There was one brief mention of George Clooney's name. It wasn't really a question. No questions about George Clooney, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Parkinson's. I didn't hear the word Parkinson's. Did you? Did anyone ask whether he had Parkinson's? Why a neurologist is going to the White House every month? The question about his neurological exam, or why don't you take one, was the second to last question. It was almost an hour in before they asked about his obvious cognitive decline, which is the number one issue. Nothing even close. He spent more time talking about every foreign freaking country, Gaza and China and Ukraine and Russia and Finland and Sweden. Nothing about his brain until the second to last question. I mean, it was a dereliction of duty on the part of these alleged journalists. They're not journalists. They're useful idiots. They're spineless cowards who did not do their job. That's why it wasn't a real press conference. And of course, the ballless Joe Biden did not call on Peter Doocy. Doocy was right there, front row. Didn't get a question. Newsmax? You want to know why Newsmax didn't get a question? Because they wouldn't let them in the room. You had all these foreigners sitting there who don't even know anything about our domestic politics and don't care. You know, they want to know about Finland and NATO. And they get to ask a question of the president, one of a dozen questions, but not Newsmax, not Fox News, not the New York Post. None of them get to ask a question. This was not a press conference, which is why it was so damn frustrating. He read from a teleprompter, a speech someone else wrote for him, and then he looked at his little list and went, who next? Jeff Mason, Reuters. And he knew what they would ask. He knew there'd be no tough questions. This was not a test. I'll say this. The media gets an F. They were bad. They were really, really bad. The president was bad. Not as bad as they were. And not bad enough. Here's the big story. Here's the big takeaway. If you watch the press conference, I'm sure you will agree. Joe Biden was bad, but not bad enough. This did not work out the way Barack Obama and George Clooney and the New York Times and Rob Reiner and the 1,000 other people who are calling for Joe Biden to step down, to step out, to step aside. He's not going anywhere. It ain't going as planned. Sorry, Barack. Sorry, Stephen Colbert. You want him out. He's not going anywhere. You picked him, Barack. You picked the wrong guy. He's a stubborn, nasty narcissist who honestly believes he's a good president. That's another takeaway. He thinks, I mean, I know he lies. He lies about everything. He started off the press conference. I'm sorry. He started off the uh, choreographed campaign event, which is what it was, lying about the border and how he secured the border and it's safer than it was when Trump was president. He actually said that. I mean, he lies so casually, so comfortably. I've never seen anyone who could just lie. But I also think he believes some of his lies. He's, he lives in a bubble. He's surrounded by sycophants and by family members, and they tell him, "You're doing a great job." And he probably reads, Paul Krugman, probably listens to Joy Reid, and thinks he's doing a good job. He said he's the most consequential president since Lyndon Johnson. Now that might be true, but it's not a good consequence. He opened the border. He pumped trillions in the economy. We got inflation. We have crime in the streets. We have gun violence, and we'll get to that. I knew he would snap at some point. He's going to break out the angry Joe at some point, and it was so fake. Got angry about gun violence, but he actually said this. I wrote it down. I don't even know I have the clip. He said that he didn't want to sound self-serving, but the other leaders at the NATO summit this week came up to him and said, "Joe, the reason we're so successful is because of you." What he thinks he held NATO together? Did I miss something? Was NATO going to fall apart? He held NATO together by paying more than our fair share, by supporting, protecting countries that just that can't protect themselves. And by the way, before we get to the real substance, who gives a damn whether Finland and Sweden are in NATO? How does that help any Americans? He brags about it. Finland, the president of Finland flew to my office and sat down and said, "I want to be in NATO." And I said, "Okay." How does that help a single American? So Finland has an 800-mile border with Russia, and now they're in NATO, which means if Russia crosses that border, we go to war with Russia. Is that a good thing? Are Americans, some guy working stiff in Ohio, saying, "Oh, good, Finland's in NATO. I feel better." Well, how does that help anybody? It helps Finland. How does that help us? He brags about Article 5. Great. So if someone attacks Sweden, we have to go to war. If someone attacks any NATO country, if someone attacks Turkey, we have to go to war. Oh, great. Great job, Joe. You expanded NATO. That means we're more likely to go to war with Russia or China. What a great accomplishment. You're amazing. I try to decipher every time I hear him talk, like, does he believe what he's saying, that the economy is good? He breaks out this nonsense about Nobel Prize winning economists say I'm great. Yeah, just like 51 intelligence officials said the laptop was fake. These are hacks who hate Trump. People in Europe hate Trump. That's good. I don't want them to like our president because that means we're giving them everything. That's why Ukraine loves Joe Biden and hates Trump, because they know the gravy train may come to a halt if Joe Biden loses in November, and he will, which is another delusion. He thinks, I don't know what polls, he thinks he's doing great. He thinks he's going to win. Now, he might win if enough illegal aliens can vote, but the polls aren't good right now, Joe. I don't know if you heard, but the polls are terrible for you and Kamala. And they did get to, it was the last question they got to, will you step aside if they could show you that Kamala has a better chance to beat Trump? I believe this was it. Then they started shouting things at him and he shuffled off the stage. But where was this question in the first 58 minutes? Why is that not the first question? Why is there anything about Finland or Gaza or anywhere else? We care about this election. All those things he talked about, the wars and China and trade and Gaza, none of that matters if he loses in 4 months, none of that matters. I mean, he's a short timer. So the only question that really matters is, are you staying in the race? And do you really think you're going to win? I mean, really? Because if you don't, nothing you said in the first 58 minutes means anything. But I will say that I'll say he did okay. All right, I'll give him a D. Ironhead, you want to give him a grade?
I thought it was terrible, but better than I thought.
Well, he's the great benefit he has is the low expectations. He was stammering and stumbling and whispering and yelling and losing his way and calling and saying his vice president was Donald Trump, which was an all-time gaffe.
I was just going to say the DNC chair, Jamie Harrison, is on MSNBC saying, if you bring up him saying he's Vice President Trump, you're nitpicking.
Well, how about if we bring up him introducing President Putin in front of the entire NATO summit, in front of all 31 countries? We should start with that. But here's what's going to happen. Everyone on Newsmax and Fox and New York Post and podcasts are going to point out, accurately that he was terrible, but he wasn't quite as bad as he was in the debate. He didn't come out on stage with his underwear on the outside of his pants. He didn't fall down and break a hip. His teeth didn't fall out. So it wasn't a total disaster, which means he's staying in the race, which means Clooney and Obama and the New York Times will have nothing to say tomorrow. They'll have to give him credit and say he survived to fight another day. There were many, many predictions that he would be out by this weekend. That ain't happening. He's going nowhere. He's delusional. He thinks he's doing a great job. He thinks he can beat Trump, and he thinks he's the most important man in the world. He's a narcissist. So he's going nowhere. It worked out. I would say if you're sitting in Mar-a-Lago right now, they're pretty happy. They're saying, oh, good, because we know Kamala would be terrible too. But with Biden in there, you have the old age, the cognitive, you have all the questions about his cognitive state, about his Parkinson's, his dementia. So I think Donald Trump right now is pretty happy, and he was posting about the gaffe where he called him the vice president, which is pretty great. But let's start with, this was a prelude, a preview of things to come. And consider the context, the setting. He's in D.C., and by the way, he's bragging about what a successful summit it was. Here's how successful it was. Hey, everybody. Hey, all NATO guys, NATO countries. We're going to keep paying. Isn't that great? We're going to keep spending, sending billions to Ukraine, sending arms everywhere. Aren't we great? Gee, you are, Joe. Thanks. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for protecting us. You're the best. That's what he considers a successful summit. Anyway, here's the big moment. The president of the United States gets to introduce his money laundering flim-flam man from Ukraine, Zelensky, who, by the way, is once again dressed up like he's going out to work in the yard. Everyone else perfectly dressed, but not Zelensky. He's special. Here's how we introduced him.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway.
Zelensky, there's a camera angle from the side, and Zelensky's just like, oh my God, what a buffoon. What an absolute buffoon. But that's good, because he's just going to keep milking. He got another 225 million today. We're well over 100 billion to keep this pointless war going and keep this scam artist rich. So that's the big win for Joe Biden at the NATO summit. Yep, we're going to keep pissing away billions and billions of dollars in Ukraine, and we're just going to keep going forever until Putin gives up, till Ukraine wins, which is never going to happen. But anyway, I'm so sick of just any foreign affairs. We have the most insane situation in this country right now. Again, a whole bunch of important people trying to oust the president with 6 months left in his term, with 4 months to election day. Who gives a damn about Ukraine or NATO? I mean, honestly, I know NATO's important, but not right now. None of these things matter if this dementia man, if he loses in 4 months. But okay, we'll go from his introduction of President Putin to his praise of Vice President Trump. Do we have that?
Yes, we do. I figure we should play this before the clips just so everyone
Okay.
remembers what this was.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go to KJP, who is just having a real tough week. A really tough. He is so bad. I would say Kamala Harris is the worst diversity hire in the world, but she's right there with her. It's a close contest. Go ahead.
Big boy press conference. Big boy press conference. A big boy press conference. Hold a press conference. A big boy press conference.
A press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it. The press conference. The big boy press conference that y'all are planning to have.
Gives his press conference. His big boy press conference.
Ugh.
It wasn't a press conference. I'm serious. It was not a press conferences. You don't get to use teleprompters. You don't get a list of pre-selected people who know, and you don't get to know what they're going to ask. That's not how it works. This is just we were swindled on this one, and I should have known it. I should have known they weren't going to actually send him out there for a press conference. He hasn't never done a real press conference. Never. 8 months ago, he did a press conference about the Robert Hur report, and he stood in front of the camera and just lied over and over again. He did the whole thing where he said, "How dare he ask about my son? How dare he?" He never asked about his son. Biden brought it up. He was lying, as always. But he went from the summit to the big boy press conference, and it started off great. This is the one time I laughed out loud. I picture Trump sitting there watching, probably in a room full of his family, his friends, and everyone's kind of having a soft drink and having a good time. And they were probably thinking Biden would fall on his face worse than he did. But again, you don't want that. You don't want him out of the race. You want him in the race. He can't win. He is, unless we have the biggest election fraud we've ever seen, and that would be saying something. We'll get to the polls. We'll get to the latest approval rating, and it's something to behold. It really is. Nobody likes this guy. Nobody. Lots of people dislike Trump. Lots of people are voting against Trump. Nobody is voting for Joe Biden. Nobody. And I will prove it to you. But let's get to the beginning of the big boy press conference. Go ahead.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she's not qualified to be president.
From there, we got a little bit yelling, a lot of anyways. The guy must say anyway 900 times because his brain malfunctions. Whenever he loses his way, he just says anyway. And he says, I'm going to nitpick again. I'm going to nitpick a little bit. There's Vice President Trump. There's a couple of those going around, a couple of scary Vice President Trumps. But he says anyway. He says no joke when no one thought there was a joke. Like no one, you say it's not a joke when some people think you're joking and you want to make it clear you're not joking. But he says no joke at the most awkward times. And another one of my peeves, grown men shouldn't say, guess what? Guess what? Presidents of the United States shouldn't say, guess what? Guess what? That's what like 10-year-olds say. Guess what? Guess what, mommy? Guess what, mommy? Daddy? Guess what? Guess what? He's not presidential. There's nothing presidential about him. Everything is fake. His hair, his teeth, his eyes, his face, everything's fake. His script, his answers, there's just nothing genuine. He is as genuine as Swedish fish. He's just so inauthentic. Anyway, I get hung up on that. He went from lying about the border to talking about NATO to talking about Gaza. Then he went to the the people he called on, and he pulled out the list, and he struggles with the list. That's a tough thing for him to pull the list out and read the name. He struggled with that one. He screwed it up a couple times. Went to the VP Trump, started bragging again about how everyone in NATO loves him. Everyone in NATO loves me. Yeah, illegal aliens love you too. You know, welfare recipients, they love you too. You know, people who like work for a living, pay taxes, they hate your guts. And I kept waiting. I know it's foolhardy and naive of me. I kept saying, when is one of these useful idiots in the media, when are they going to say, Barack Obama wants you out? George Clooney, Nancy Pelosi wouldn't even support you, the most powerful Democrat in Congress. Nothing. Her name was never mentioned. This was just such a disgrace. But anyway, we have so much more to get to. We'll get to his creepy whispering. Creepy. That's not the way it is. Does someone ever tell him, one of his advisors or his wretched wife said, Joe, stop whispering. You're creeping people out. It's not effective. It's not good. Don't whisper. Yell if you want.
He thinks it's charming.
I don't know. He thinks it's folksy or whatever. Oh, we'll get to that. And we'll get to how another radio station is outing the authoritarian Biden campaign. These people who are trying to control everything. Like I said, nothing is on the level. Nothing is genuine. They don't do interviews with local radio stations unless they can rig them. We'll get to that and more, but first.
Excuse me.
I don't want to start toward the end here, Ironhead. I want to get to that question about Kamala, because it was a good one. There were so few good questions. The question about what if Kamala could prove, what if it was shown to you that Kamala could beat Trump and you couldn't, you know, and right now it's close. There's some polls that show she's losing by, I don't know, 2 or 3, and he's losing by 6 or 7. It's close. I mean, once Kamala got the nomination and had to go out there and speak every day, that would change, because she's a disaster. She did the unburdened by what is not to be burdened by the unburdened again yesterday. She did the same stupid line. She can't help herself. She's so vapid. As I said, we'll do this and then we'll get to the question about Kamala. Go ahead.
They taught us that we could do anything and should never be burdened by the limitations of other people to be able or not be able to see what can be. And this is that community who understands and can see what is possible unburdened by what has been.
Oh my God.
It's the most vapid, vacuous thing. And she says it every day. That was yesterday. Someone has to get to her too. But I know she's just so vacant and just so dumb. She can't do it. She would be the top of the ticket if Barack Obama got his way. That would be your nominee. She would be debating Trump, running against Trump. So I guess either way it works out for Trump. But so someone asks at the end, the second to last question, or maybe it was the last question. Someone shouted something at the end that he gave like a 2-word answer about Trump. Anyway, they ask about, will you step aside if it's proven to you that she could do better than you? And of course, again, he thinks he's doing great, but he does the stupid, creepy thing. And he says this too, like the polls, they're good. I'm winning. I don't know if he really sees polls that they show him some poll, some outlier, or he just makes it up. Either way, he's delusional and he's going nowhere. Go ahead.
You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that. Mr. President. Okay.
Yikes.
No one says that. No poll says that. Every poll says that. Literally, every poll. I mean, and I guess it doesn't matter. You know, it's June, it's July. We have 4 months. Things can change. Things will change. Once they get all those illegals registered, things will change. But all the polls say that now. No poll says that. It just, I mean, he just has no connection to reality, no connection to the truth. I mean, think of it. He said the border's closed, the economy's great, the foreign affairs are wonderful. Everyone loves him. He's winning in the polls. He's lucid, coherent, healthy. Nothing he said is true. I mean, literally nothing for an hour. And everyone on MSNBC is probably saying, man, Joe is back, the comeback kid. All right, let's get to some of the highlights, the lowlights. What do we got? We got a couple of him slurring.
This is, I thought, the highlight of his brain shutting off when he's talking about Kamala Harris and then just randomly starts talking about bullets.
Oh, this is when he snaps.
Yeah.
All right, good. I want to talk about this. Let's listen, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
We're sitting around. That's where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around. More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing?
That was a genuine question, I think, at the end. What am I doing?
And I know, like Kamala, what is Kamala doing about gun violence? What, has Kamala gone to Chicago lately? We go over the numbers every week. 103 people shot 4th of July weekend. Has Kamala been there? Studied the root causes? Has anyone gone there? Biden? Obama? Has he gone to his hometown to fight gun violence? But here's what drives me nuts. He'll rant and rave about gun laws and weapons of war and assault weapons. He was a senator for 35 years. He was vice president for 8 years. He's been president for 3.5 years. Who's supposed to do something about guns? Senators? Yeah. Presidents? Vice presidents? He was a lawmaker for 36 years. Did he make any laws, banning guns? I mean, he rants about, he had control of the House and Senate. And did he ban guns? Did he stop gun violence? Who are you angry at exactly, Joe? Who are you ranting at? The NRA. I'm sorry. The NRA might be a powerful lobby, but you're the president. You were vice president. You were a senator. Those are the people who make the laws, I'm pretty sure. So same with the tax code. We're going to make the rich pay their taxes. Again, you were a senator for a vice president, a president. Why didn't you do something about it? Why didn't you change the tax code? Why didn't you make the rich pay their fair share? Why didn't you do something about greedy corporations? Another insane rant by this buffoon. Greedy corporations. Were they not greedy 4 years ago? We went over the numbers yesterday about the inflation, everything up, 20, 30, 50%. And he blames on corporate greed. When you can't get a full-size Snicker bar. Where was that corporate greed 4 years ago? They just decided to get greedy when you got elected? Is that what happened? Why'd they do that? Why did corporations wait till you became president to become greedy? Can anyone answer that? Can Liz Warren answer that for me? She's always ranting about corporate greed. Well, the prices were much lower 4 years ago. Were they not greedy? I don't know. That's just another one of my pet peeves. Anyway, what do we got?
This is that 40-second brain malfunction that we were talking about before the show.
Let me guess. Russia, China, Ukraine, China, Finland, blah, 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 blah. Have it right?
I honestly don't know. There were so many.
Go ahead.
And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect success, help to Russia.
Oh my
in
God.
terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them in as a consequence that their ability to fight in Ukraine.
Oh my God.
Keep that clip in mind when you hear all the MSNBC people and Rachel Maddow and they'll all be saying, man, he's back. He showed he's not slipping. He's not cognitively impaired. Yeah, we got lots of comments in the comment line. Go ahead. We'll read some tonight. True. Kamala slept her way to the top. Are we going to hear about that? We heard a lot about Stormy Daniels.
That's a good point.
Trump. We heard all about all Trump's affairs. Well, Kamala slept with Willie Brown, with Montel Williams. She wouldn't be where she is if she didn't use her body to work her way to the top.
She got a closet full of knee pads.
That's true. He says he had the only thing wrong was his left foot. He broke, and he broke his foot because this was the craziest Biden moment. It's kind of been forgotten, but they asked about his mental, physical condition, and he said the only problem the doctors found was his left foot because he broke it and he didn't wear the boot. He broke his right foot. He can't even get that right. He broke his foot he was naked coming out of the shower, and he grabbed his dog's tail. Now, anyone who's ever owned a dog, you don't even have to own a dog. Everyone knows you don't grab a dog's tail. But he was 78 at the time, walking around naked, grabbing a dog's tail. Not just any dog, a vicious killer German Shepherd. And he somehow fell down and broke his right foot. But he said the only thing wrong is the left foot doesn't quite work now because he broke it.
I got a feeling there was a jar of peanut butter that went unreported in that story.
He couldn't even get that right. Couldn't even get which foot he broke. Oh, man. What else we got? He liked his bronze face. Yes, I will say that the White House mortician did a fine job. Unlike the debate, he wasn't ghastly white. He had some color, and his fake hair was all in place, and he had a nice suit on. He looked fine this time. He did not look like a corpse like he did in the debate. But I wonder if any of the dissenters, the apostates, will come back to him. Any of the Rob Reiners and Stephen Kings and Stephen Colbert's, will any of them say today, that, I think I'm back. I'm back on the Biden train. I bet they will. I bet some will say, because they hate Trump and they have no choice. I mean, they're not going to get rid of Biden unless he has a major physical malfunction, and there's a good chance of that. But unless it's a real debilitating physical problem, he's not stepping down, and they can't do anything about it. He has the delegates. They can't force him out unless they went with the 25th Amendment, and that requires the vice president and half the cabinet. And the vice president shows no signs. No one has spread the lie, the cheap fake about his condition more than Kamala. She's been talking about how he is tip-top for years. She shows no signs that she will initiate the 25th Amendment. So that's not happening. There is no mechanism to get him out involuntarily. The only thing he can do is they were hoping to persuade him, maybe pay him to walk away. And I mean, would you agree, Ironhead? There was no sign, not even a hint, that he's considering walking away, throwing in the towel. That's not happening.
The complete opposite, actually.
Yeah, complete opposite. I mean, they're going to take him out on a gurney. He is going to, if he wins, he's going to die on the job. Even if he doesn't, he's got 6 months, and who knows. All right, what else we got? We got
this is one of my favorite clips too, when he was explaining what Putin and Russia thought of Kyiv.
Oh, good.
As Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia.
What?
Mother home of Russia.
God, you know what? There's many reasons to vote Trump.
Yeah.
And I don't think Trump will end the war in 24 hours, but he will end it because it's endable. We've known that. There was a deal in place a couple of years ago until Biden and Boris Johnson blew it up. It is endable. There's no way Ukraine can win. They cannot win. So the best they can hope for is a peace treaty, a settlement. And the only thing stopping that is Joe Biden and the Democrats, who love this endless war, this money laundering operation. So I'm just so sick of Zelensky and so sick of Putin and sick of the damn war. End it. He bragged tonight that 350,000 Russians have died. He's very proud of that. Well, I think more than 350,000 Ukrainians have died. You proud of that too, Joe? It's a much smaller country. It is been a much more devastating death toll to Ukraine because of you. You proud of that? You compassionate, decent man. Just so absurd. All right, we got any more?
Yeah, this is this is him kind of slipping through the cracks that Joel is not being nice to him behind the scenes. I don't know if you caught this.
I love my staff, but they add things. They add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife. For that. Anyway.
Well, anyway.
He blames his staff and his wife. That's another thing. He never takes responsibility for anything.
Never.
He was asked about his desire, his need to end things early to get to bed. So it's not true. It's not true. My staff adds things, makes my day longer. He doesn't even, he doesn't have the stamina to do the job now. All right. That was clear. He doesn't have what it takes to do the job now. He can't do it. He doesn't have the energy. No knock on him. He's an old, sickly man. And yet he wants to stand up there and tell you, I'm ready to go another 4 years until I'm 86. Just so absurd. I kept waiting for the Clooney, Obama, Pelosi question, and it never came. The second to last question when he asked about the neurological exam, and he lied. He said he would take it if his doctors told him to. Well, his doctor is a family friend and a business partner in one of his corrupt schemes run by his brother, Dr. O'Connor. You think he's going to say, Joe, you need a neurological exam? That's such a cop-out. Sure, I'll take it if my doctor thinks I should. Well, that's like saying I'll take it if Jill thinks I should or Hunter. There's no difference. He's not going to take it because he would never pass it. And he got through the press conference and now he doesn't have to worry about being asked about it again because the only interviews he'll do are ones where he gives the interview the questions. All right. We got any more?
Yeah, this is the way it ended.
Oh, good.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, he made it. He made it, and he didn't even look he looked confused. He knew which way to go. That's a major win for Biden. He left the stage without getting lost. That's a rarity. That's a big W for Biden. And I'm telling you, tomorrow they're going to say he knocked it out of the park, or this weekend, Sunday morning shows, tonight, they'll be saying he knocked it out of the park. He's back. And it's on. We're done with this talk of Kamala, that buffoon. Now we got this buffoon and Trump one-on-one. And Trump can start. He actually starts ripping Trump about not doing appearances. He wasn't doing appearances because you were doing you were doing it for him, Joe. You were digging yourself in and he stayed back and let you dig. He let you drown. And he said he was playing golf with a fill out scorecard before he started playing. Good. That was what he's supposed to do. You fool. He let everyone focus on you. That's what it was all about. But now Trump has got a convention coming up. He's got a big decision. And I hope I know which way he's going. I'll get to that and a little more right after this.
Excuse me.
And I got to do this story because this fascinates me. We told you about the radio stations that ratted out the Biden campaign. What was that, 2 weeks ago? And said they gave them the questions in advance to interview them. And one woman on a black radio station in Philadelphia, a black woman, told the truth, said, yeah, they told me what to ask. And she got fired. Joe Biden got a black woman fired from her job for telling the truth. That happened 2 weeks ago. Well, this broke yesterday. This is from Politico. A Wisconsin-based talk radio station edited its interview with President Joe Biden at the request of the campaign before it aired last week. Broadcaster Civic Media said in a statement, immediately after the interview, conducted on July 3rd, the Biden campaign called and asked for 2 edits to the recording, and WAUK's production team cut the segments that they asked them to cut. The management of the radio station became aware of the edits Monday and shared the full audio on it. Do we have that, Ironhead? Because one cut sucks, but the other cut about all the black people he's hired is pretty good. See if you can grab that.
I'll see what I'm thinking.
They admitted they removed the portion from the interview in which Biden said, bragged about how many black people he's hired. And they cut a second sentence from Biden that he requested about Trump saying in 1989 that the people, the Central Park Five who were accused of raping a woman, who confessed to raping a woman in Central Park, big deal, big story. And Trump said they should get the death penalty. Well, lots of people said that because they confessed to it and they eventually were exonerated, but there's still a lot of questions. And I think he said it before they were exonerated. So who cares? Maybe that's why they asked him to remove it. So they removed both things from the interview at the request of Joe Biden's campaign. I mean, I know these people are all in it together. I've never heard of such a thing. Again, I've done a million interviews on the radio, in print. I've never had someone call after an interview. We did a lot of taped interviews and said, could you take this part out? These people are just control freaks, and they know they're dealing with an invalid, and they know he misspeaks so often. And the radio station did it and then said they shouldn't have done it, because obviously they shouldn't have done it. But it makes you wonder, is this how they deal with all their interviews? Do they call in and say, cut this part out every time they do a radio interview or a print interview? Is this the way they operate? I mean, they control every move he makes. Again, there's nothing genuine. There's nothing real about the man, the campaign, nothing. Everything is controlled. Amazing. And also yesterday, which get overshadowed by the big boy press conference, there was a report that Joe Biden has not held a cabinet meeting in 9 months. I was always under the impression that you had one like every week. 9 months ago, October, last time he held a cabinet meeting, and they said they were told what they could ask him. His own cabinet officials were told in advance, when he calls in, you ask him this. And he had no clue any of the substance of the issue. But he has no cabinet meetings. He does no press conferences. He does no interviews. He doesn't campaign. He does nothing. It's amazing. I guess she makes up for it, Dr. Jill. But did we get that clear? It's not great. It's just him bragging about how many blacks he's hired. He says blacks.
Yeah, I think this is it.
Well, 2 things. One, I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. And, but I learned from my father, when you get knocked down, just get back up. Get back up.
No, I guess not. But it has the script for the removal right here. It says, at the time, 520, the removal of, in addition to that, I have more blacks in my administration than any other president of all presidents combined and in major positions and cabinet positions.
That's how he answers. That's how he talks to a black radio station. Well, listen, how many black friends I have. And immediately someone pointed out, that's not true. That's absurd. He said more than all other administrations combined, which is patently false. So they call in and say, could you take that out? And they do. But that's him. I got more blacks in my administration than anybody. Well, do you have good people? I mean, or just blacks? I mean, do you have good women or just women? I mean, is the Secretary of Transportation, is he good at the job or is he just gay? You know, I mean, isn't that a good follow-up? I mean, are they good at the job? Are they doing a good job? Is your vice president good at the job? Is your spokesperson good? Or are they just there so you can brag that you have a really diverse administration? What's Jake got to say?
This is him talking about the edits.
Right, let's listen to Jake Tapper, who's my new favorite. He's totally bailed. I mean, I know he's a snake, but he's totally bailed on Joe Biden. And every day he's got this snarky attitude. He has just had it up to here with the whole cover-up of Joe Biden's condition. And he feels like he's been lied to, I guess. But anyway, let's listen.
After President Biden called in for a radio interview, one of these interviews done to kind of quell concerns and show the president was fine and completely on point. After he did that call, the Biden campaign called that station asking them to edit out 2 of his answers. Civic Media, Wisconsin Progressive Talk Radio Network, acknowledged that staff took out the Biden campaign's suggested edits, deleting 2 answers from the president's July 3rd interview with host Earl Ingram. The first answer is Biden said, quote, "I have more blacks in my administration than any other president, all other presidents combined, and in major positions, cabinet positions." Obviously not an accurate thing to say. The second, when Biden was talking about Trump's past comments about the Central Park Five, and we should note, like, this is a big journalism no editing out an answer because the politician in his campaign didn't like it, or they didn't like how he came across. I don't know exactly the reason. We'll find out from the Biden campaign maybe someday.
He's done. He's done with Biden, which is great. I mean, he's still a weasel, but it's fun to watch. All right, 2 quick things quickly, and throw up any other comments we should get to. Oh, don't forget, Joe Biden eulogized Robert Byrd. Of course, we never forget that. Joe Biden called segregated schools jungles. Didn't want his kid to go to a school that was a racial jungle. I mean, you want some good questions if you work for a black radio station. You know, there's some good ones. But anyway, I'll get to that. I have to get to this because I'm feeling good about my choice. I really want J.D. Vance as vice president for a number. I've gone over it a few times, obviously. He's 39 years old. He's smart as hell. He's fearless. He's a good MAGA Republican. He went to Yale Law. He joined the Marines, wrote a best-selling book. He grew up dirt poor. They just don't have anything on him. And I just think he'd be great. And tonight I felt more strongly because of the 4 people, say he picks Vance, and you have Trump, Vance, Biden, and Harris. The only person who could answer all the questions with substance is Vance, would be Vance. Now, Trump gives a good press conference, but he's short on substance. He doesn't know all the issues. He's funny. He's brash. He insults people. But if you want a guy to just take on any question, confrontational, hostile question, and just take it to the media and answer them smartly and thoroughly with a little attitude, that's Vance. And the reason I think it's Vance, Donald Trump Jr., is speaking Wednesday at the convention before the vice president. Don Jr. is a good friend of J.D. Vance, a huge proponent. He's been pushing Vance the whole time. And I think they might have Don Jr. introduce J.D. Vance. At least I'm hoping. And maybe Rubio Burgum. I don't get that at all. But and I know, people say Rubio, the Hispanic vote. We're past that. Rubio's not. People aren't going to vote for him because he's Hispanic. They might like him. There's lots of things to like about him, but who cares? We should be done with all this DEI stuff. That should be part of the platform. All right, before we go, I need a minute. Throw that approval rating thing up there. I find this fascinating. Maybe it's just me. Again, as I said earlier, nobody likes Joe Biden. Nobody's voting for Joe Biden. There's no such thing as a Biden supporter. There's just Trump supporters and Trump haters. That's it. This came out, and sometimes you just look at these and don't even look closely. This is the latest poll on approval ratings of Joe Biden by, what's it called? interactive polls. Oh, Pew Research. Biden job approval. Approve 32%. I don't think I've ever seen a lower job approval rating for a sitting president. 32%. That is rock bottom. A new low, it says. White people. Here's the disapprove number. Disapprove number. White people, 29%. Black people, 51%. 51%. Do I have that right? That's half.
51% strongly approve.
Half, it's approve or disapprove. I got to remember. White, black, 51-45. So half of black voters disapprove of Joe Biden. Hispanic, 32. Asian, 36. Now we get down to how about this? Men, 32. Women, 32. He has a 32% approval rating among women. A Democrat president running for re-election. Now the best part. Ages 18 to 29. These are kids. College kids, kids just out of college. His approval rating is 27%.
That's like,
am I reading that right? Is that possible?
That's what it says.
20-year-old kids who are liberal, who are getting student loans forgiven by this guy, who are pro-abortion, who are always Democrats, mostly. Are you sure? Am I reading that right? 27.
Yep.
It's the lowest of any age group. I've never seen this before. A Democrat with a 27% approval rating among 18 to 29-year-olds. That right there is just shocking to me. And that is really bad news for Big Boy Joe. And he's bragging. He's up on stage bragging about his polls and his popularity. That to me, I saw that today and I said, it really is over. I mean, you don't recover from that, from a 32% approval rating.
No.
Because there's nothing he can do. You know, he can't give a speech. He can't give a rally. He can't do a press conference. He can't do a debate. What can he do? He can't get any younger. What can he do to change that? Nothing, except hope Trump does something stupid. I mean, or, you know, that you have a pandemic, or you have the bird flu.
Pay off more student loans. That seems to have worked.
Yeah, right. I mean, if he didn't give all those deadbeats 160 billion, where would he be? 20%? 10? That is unbelievable for a Democrat in this day and age. They used to hate Trump. I guess they don't anymore. They hate Joe Biden. Everybody hates Joe Biden. Some people just hate Trump more. That's all. All right. That will do it for today and for this week. A wild week. I have to say, Ironhead, every day we got too much stuff, and it's going to get even better next week. Convention, the VP, another, visit from the neurologist to the White House. Jill is going to get even more angry. It's going to be good. All right, that's the open music. That's not the closing music, I don't think.
Oh no, there is no closing music. I hit the wrong button by mistake.
Okay, the wrong button by mistake. Why don't you hit the right button by mistake sometime? All right, that'll do it. You got the rest of the day off, the weekend off, and good job. I got a million comments to read, but we don't have time. Any good ones? Tulsi would guarantee a win, says DJ. Tulsi would not guarantee a win. Tulsi's a Democrat. I like her, but she's a former Bernie bro. How do you explain that? RFK Jr., stop with the RFK Jr. He's a liberal. He's a climate alarmist. I like him. He's kind of interesting.
Wasn't there just a picture of him eating a dog or something?
Yes, he had a picture of him eating a dog, a cooked dog. It wasn't alive. It was dead. But
well, that makes it so much better.
Obama did it. Obama used to eat dog. He wrote it in his book. But yes, RFK Jr., he's fallen. I want him to make a little comeback because he takes votes away from Biden. So I hope he's on the ballot in as many states as possible. But no, VP J.D. Vance. We want J.D. Vance. Look, he's a fighter. That's what we need, a fighter and a smart guy and a veteran and a guy who was genuinely dirt poor, unlike the phony Joe Biden working class bullshit. J.D. Vance has a real rags to riches story to tell, and it's a good one. So go JD. Hopefully this time, middle next week, we'll be talking about JD Vance, who will be immediately the favorite to win the presidency in 2028. That's what I'm thinking. That's what matters. But all right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chatting. Thank you, Ironhead. I'm Jerry Callahan. This is the